Hello, Amir. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Yeah, given that some like we talk a bit, some of the kids are sick and stuff, but other than that, life is kind of like manageable.
Did you get
Yeah,
sick though? Did you get sick in the wave of it?
yeah. I'm the only in the family that hasn't gone sick. So my wife has been sick. And
Oh,
the kids have basically like switched like who is sick. Yeah, like for the last 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah. So like and it's like summer. So like I don't understand like.
there's
How
no logic.
does the viruses don't get killed? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think England's a bit easier because like you have like 2 or 3 days of sun and then just like horrific sideways rain, and then you know where you're going to get sick. But with where you are, it's quite consistent, so it's a shame.
Yeah. Like yeah, I have lived. I grew up in the northern Europe, so I know the drill. Yeah.
Yeah.
You usually freeze in the summer. Like you think you can kind of like have some warmth, but it's not really the case. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll get better, but we'll see. Um, so you've been really busy. The team's been really busy. Obviously, there's a lot of undertakings you're doing. You got Todoist, you got Twist. The things are evolving in the AI space. So I thought, what a better opportunity to grab some time to talk more about the future of Todoist mainly. Um, so obviously, this year's been quite a big year because you've had calendar. There's been a lot of sort of restructuring of how you've been doing things. How has 2024 gone for you guys so far?
Yeah, I mean, we are very happy with the evolution so far. So we had like some pretty big releases. I mean, we started the year with like Team Workspaces,
Mm.
which is basically our entrance on like B2B space, and this is like even actually important for like a consumer, so like B2C market, because it basically gives us a lot more cash to work with.
Mhm.
Um, so I think like also consumers should be happy that we actually have something that's working here, because yeah, the business model is just much better.
Mhm.
Um, and then maybe that can like over time allow us to not really be so aggressive with the B2C space. Just like, I mean, for instance, like we haven't really raised prices for a long time and stuff like
Mm.
that. And there's no like, maybe we are going to do that, but like there's no real pressure to actually do that
Yeah.
while this, yeah. So I'm quite excited, like if we can actually, make B2B work and B2C work, and kind of like, have an amazing like tool for teams, for individuals, but then like they're not really clashing against each other, and we need to like make big compromises between these two. Yeah. So that's one element. The other element is like the whole, calendar support that has like it's such like a big, I mean, it's a very non-trivial thing to do, especially we have also done it like on mobile. We have changed models to kind of like
Mm.
for instance durations, and like there's a lot of stuff that
Mm.
like users don't really see, but that you kind of need to do. And then like thirdly, we have basically like, paid off a lot of debt. So
Mhm.
uh, you know I think we've kind of reduced our backlog. So backlog is kind of like the number of issues of bugs you have from like 2000 to like 200 or something like that. So like a
Mhm.
massive reduction, and that improves stability. Yeah. So hopefully, people can see that like this is more stable and faster and stuff like that. Yeah.
Brilliant. No, I mean, I was talking to Naomi on your team and she was explaining through the sort of that workspace. I didn't really know this from my perspective, but workspaces was one of the biggest requested features because people just wanted to organize their work life and their personal life much better. So it's great that you guys got it out this year as well. In terms of just a follow up question on that, in terms of the technical debt side of stuff, the way that I see Todoist sometimes at least is that it's slower on features, but you take more time to like think them through and how they have an impact on productivity. Do you think that now some of the technical debt's been addressed, you'll have more features that are well thought out, if you know what I mean? Not that you don't, but you have loads of them. But do you know what I mean? Like, will more features be coming because that frees you up?
Yeah, I mean, something that is actually like always, I think, a challenge is kind of like not adding too much stuff and like really nailing, the foundations. So that's something we have like focused on for a long time. And even in the near future, like that's something we still want to focus on. So I think it's kind of like, it can be very like alluring to just like, add flashy stuff. And then, you have maybe sync that's broken, or you have, like attachment that are not working very well, or whatever else it is. So actually, like the stuff we want to do, like in the near term, is kind of like improve further, like all the core aspects of Todoist and make it like much, much better. So one element, for instance, right now, like we kind of like read on the search engine behind like the scenes. Most users don't actually like notice because you don't use it a lot. But like search, like powerful search, is such like a critical element to nail and get right. So we have a bunch of these things we want to improve. For instance, like activity log, like it's kind of like it's not very good right now. So there's like a lot of other stuff like where we actually want to take an existing thing, for instance, attachments also, like, and just make that like 10x better, then like introduce some other like, I don't know, like habit tracker, or whatever else. Like we could like note taking, and like you could like add a lot of stuff, and then suddenly you have like this Frankenstein where maybe you have like a few things that kind of work and a lot of stuff that does not really work or like does not really make sense. So like we are really like super careful on what are we actually going to add, and does that actually make sense, and how does that fit into like a bigger picture, and also like how big is demand for from customers. So something like calendar, I mean, that is actually another feature I have been super excited about, historically, because I could just like see a lot of complexity. But if you have like every day like 100 customers asking for that, then at some point you need to add it. So
it's like finding that balance between what the customer wants and what's actually useful for users instead of bloating it. I think that sort of leads me on to my next question about like the daily planner. We were briefly discussing it before, but it seems to, in the task management space, be either that calendar apps are adding tasks, or tasks apps are adding calendar, or there's just a morph of the two. How do you see it from that perspective? Will you continue, now that you've added calendar, is it something that you will be like, okay, let's be more of a planner app, if that makes sense?
I mean, that makes a lot of sense, Francesco. And that's based like so when we actually commit to a thing, like for instance, like adding calendar, we want to have the best damn calendar support there is. That is kind of like the ambition of like the thing we want to do. So like we're not just adding a calendar and then like never thinking about it again. Now like calendar is actually a core feature. It needs to be integrated into everything, and it needs to be really, really great. So even right now, like we're working actually on a lot of stuff. For instance, like we are rewriting actually the web calendar, so you can just like support many more events, many more tasks. You can kind of have like continuous scroll. So like we are even like improving it much further than even though like the current version kind of works, but we could do it better. So that's kind of like how we do that. And of course, like I think something and something as well, like I've actually never really been a time blocker myself. But given that we have added this, I've actually began to like time block stuff, and I think it makes a lot of sense, and I understand like why there's appeal for this. So even right, like I'm kind of like converted time blocker, where like I would just like block, for instance, in the morning, like what are the stuff, like what are the tasks that I actually want to do, and then I also like see events, like when do I have events coming up that can interfere with that, so it kind of like makes weekly planning much, much nicer, because you can just basically see, okay, I want to allocate, and work on this there. While in the past, I would just like have a flat list where I basically have, today I need to do like X, Y, Z. And then, I don't really have like a notion of time or like, planning, even like longer term planning. Yeah. So we are very excited about the space, and, like we're definitely entering this like in a big way. Yeah.
Is it? Yeah. I mean, it is really interesting from this perspective, because you've always been task orientated, and and Calendar has added that new layer to the mix. And that sort of leads me on to the conversation of artificial intelligence, because when I first sort of saw a lot of the AI wrappers and these sort of apps, I didn't review them because I knew that these sort of AI tools are not really AI tools. It just seemed like more of a feature with a bunch of stuff slapped over the top. But I think it's become a lot more prevalent. Last time we talked, it wasn't. What's your view in the next sort of 5 years for task management and AI? Because it's quite a big conversation, and obviously it's great. I think it's, for those who are watching this video, they're big fans of Todoist. They want to know, what's your opinion on it?
Yeah, Francesco, that's that's a very hard question, especially in a 5-year time frame, because I do think like this is like growing and evolving so fast. So it's kind of very hard to like make like that long term prediction. But I can tell you like just like what I'm seeing right now and like what we are thinking about right now. So first of all, like something that we're actually doing right now is like just integrating like deeply into Apple Intelligence.
Right. Okay.
So with the iOS 18, like something you will see is like Todoist will have like amazing support for Apple Intelligence.
Right.
And this makes sense because this system they are building is basically integrating into everything on the like operating system level, and that means you can imagine all kind of like very very like advanced workflows you could have when you have like different apps deeply integrating with each other, and then you have like intelligence that kind of like glue it together, and even like understand the context. So like if you're inside Todoist, I have actually not really like fully tried how this works yet, because there's like they haven't really released fully. But I from what I can see, like from what we have actually like, so because right now we're actively working on this, so like I may say something that maybe it will not be possible, but it's kind of like context aware.
Right.
So like when you're inside the app, like Apple Intelligence knows you're inside the app, and then you can do actions and stuff, based on the app that you're in.
Right. Got you.
Yeah. So that is something I think that is kind of like the first level of integration. The second level of integration is, like if you look at like what Meta is doing, where they are like they are spending I think about $20 billion per year on training models, and then they are making them free.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine that like 20 billion is like just insane amount of money. Like and they're giving away for free, and like the latest model like 3.1 is like as good as like the latest OpenAI models. Yeah, and that is also like something that's very exciting, because I do think like on the app layer, like to this layer itself, or even any layer itself, I do think like intelligence kind of becomes a commodity. And then you can basically integrate deeply LLMs and empower almost any feature, and you do this like on a very like cheap scale, especially if you could also like use like on-device chips. So the Apple's AI chips, for instance. I'm not sure if that is actually still possible, because Apple wants to route everything through like Apple Intelligence, of course. But like it would be very like, but even if that is not possible, you can still do it in cloud. You can't do it like on like a not that expensive way. Yeah. And what does that mean? That means that you can kind of have your own Siri, inside the app that's kind of optimized. Like for instance, for today's, like you could have like a system that's just like a coach. Like you can just train it on all the knowledge of like what are the best way to get productive, help people, plan days, plan projects, whatever you want. You can kind of like do this, and you can do this cheaply as well. So I think that's like maybe the second layer. Like the first layer is kind of integrating into like these like core models, like Apple Intelligence. Google will probably also release something on their own, but then also like having something in app. And the third thing, and it's something that like I have only played a bit about this right now, but I do think like the next stage of models, like I think we are so close to kind of nailing real-time audio. Like if you
Okay.
look at the latest like OpenAI GPT-4 models, like it's basically like it can respond in like 300 milliseconds or less.
Right.
So that means like it kind of becomes like more like conversation between like like what we humans do, and then it becomes like much more natural. Because right now, like in the current models, like what you need to do is like you need to first send it to a service that kind of transcribes the like converts from voice to text, and then you
Yeah.
feed it to the model, to the LLM. Then you take that, then you put it and convert it to audio, and then you like, and that's like, that is like seconds, and it feels
Yeah.
like very unnatural, and you just like wait there, and like you feel like, why is this like stupid machine not answering right away? So actually, if you do have like 300 milliseconds or less, then suddenly I think voice becomes much more critical. That's one element. Another element as well that like these they are like they can kind of like understand like visuals as well. So you could even like
Yeah.
have it understand the context that you're in, and feed that in, and then it can also generate visuals as well.
Yeah.
So I'm quite excited, and I think like that adds actually a whole different whole different interface you can build if you have that. Yeah. So for me personally, like I just don't want to have like a stupid like thing that generates tasks. I want to have somebody like I can talk to, and they can say, okay, like I don't know how to do this task. Like, can you help me? And then like the
Yeah.
model can kind of like guide you through, and it's kind of like conversing with like an expert, like productivity expert that can just like guide you and help you.
Yeah.
So that is maybe like the future we're excited about. Yeah. So
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I was gonna hope you were gonna say, because I think it's like, from Todoist perspective, it's on so many brilliant devices, on Google Play and on Apple devices. That's like, once you connect it with those engines, I think it could go a really long way, because but I think one of the things that I was curious at is like, one of the things that AI will do is probably take the administration away from productivity. So you manually organizing things, you manually putting them in lists, manually doing this, and those sort of small things that add up to build 20 minutes, 30 minutes of your day, and then a couple of hours of your month. How do you see AI ever doing things like that for you in the background?
that's a great question, and you know, yeah. So I think like we need to experiment with this, but my intuition would be that actually like people don't want to have a system to tell them what they need to do.
Yeah.
And I have like seen different like of these systems that kind of auto manage stuff for you. You know,
Yeah.
I'm just like unsure. I think like you want some assistance, but like you don't
Yeah.
want to kind of be in the passenger seat, and then like the system is like, okay, you need to call your mom now, like or something like that, like
Yeah.
yeah. So but it will be interesting to see. Like I do think like AI can help a lot with like just generating stuff or helping like plan stuff better. Like maybe you start.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of like problems that we are seeing right now with like today's user is like they have like 50 overdue tasks, and
Right. That's it.
they get
Yeah.
very overwhelmed, and then you're like, what should I do now? Like like I'm totally
Yeah.
lost. And then like maybe the AI can kind of like guide you through, like help you filter that, and like be like kind of a friend that can kind of help you out.
Yeah.
But it's very early to say. Like I do think. I mean, if you look at like this S curve of like AI adoption, we are still at the beginning, and like most apps, most platforms have not really figured it out.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah. We'll see.
It's a tricky one, because like task management out of anything is probably harder because it's so priority orientated. So it's such an individualized experience, whereas a note is something like that can be organized based on context, and a calendar can also be organized on context a bit better. But tasks are different. So, but that's a good opportunity for you to help solve those problems. I've got one last question for you. There's been a couple of times you mentioned a note-taking app, right? Would you ever want to build a note-taking app at Todoist?
I should be careful what I'm going to say here. I would actually be very, very. I'll leak it. Yeah, I'll leak it. Let's just then someday, like everybody's like, "Oh, they're building a note-taking app." I'm like, holy shit, we are not building a note. Yeah. Like I would be very, very excited. I think that that's something like we will have kind of a renaissance period for like productivity software coming up with these LLM models. And I'm like, I would be very excited about tackling like not note taking, but more like knowledge management. How do we manage knowledge right now? And especially, like there's like individual level, it's kind of very messy, but I do think there's a lot of like support for that. But I think like on a company level or team level, it's like completely broken. And maybe, you could base like, because like if you look at like for instance, Todoist, like we are about 100 people, like we have so much knowledge, but like it's basically like very hard to find. It's not really maintained, it's kind of like a huge mess. And then like all of the systems, like we are currently using Almanac,
Right.
Like, it's very primitive. And I do think like LLM, like a very powerful LLM that's kind of like at the center of that can kind of like connect, organize, help you write stuff, help you maintain stuff. Like that would be very, very exciting. And of course, like do it in a way that's kind of like, really well crafted, like really fast, available everywhere. And then suddenly I think like, you could basically improve a lot, like the knowledge management, knowledge sharing for individuals and also like teams. So I would definitely be very, very excited about like tackling that. But the problem for us is kind of like, we are like just spread very thin because like, task management now, like calendar management, like team communication, and like if you also like tackle like, knowledge management, like, like we need to have like 1,000 people to do that.
Of course. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, you do a great job of it already. So, you should pat yourselves on the back for that, for sure. Thank you, Amir, for coming on. Is there anything you want to leave a message for the Todoist community before we go?
Yeah, I mean, maybe, like we are very actually grateful for like all of our, customers and users. And I think like the last few years, like we really listened like very hard to what people are saying, and we really tried to like implement some of that, and I do hope people appreciate that as well. Like all the stuff like that we do. I did start this for myself, but like right now it's also like serving a much bigger user base, and that's something like we take very seriously. And I just want to improve things even more. So I'm very excited about the future, and also very grateful for the community. And also for you, Francesco. I mean, you have been doing this for many years now as well. So,
I was only thinking the other day. I think our first ever conversation that we had was when I was in my university dorm room, and I think you were at home, and there was like a thunderstorm. I've got the video of it. You were telling me there was a thunderstorm, and it's been 10 years, which is crazy. Like 10 years of conversations. It's been brilliant. So thank you for taking the time to talk to us, and I'm excited to what Todoist and Twist bring in 2025.